Hey, happy Monday, everybody. I am checking here to make sure I'm in the right place, so excuse me. And I'm moving my gargantuan snack. Check this out. Look how much food that is. I looked at my meal plan today and I had to double check because that was a little bit more than I thought I should be having. So I just wanted to welcome you guys into the new week. This is called Monday. This is what we do. We do Monday and it's a new week. Unless you're one of those people who believes that Sunday is the first day of a new week, and then more power to you. Hey Marcus, how are you today? Marcus, can you give me a thumbs up if you can hear me okay? Marcus, thumbs up. All right, so I'm going to get moving on. So how to volunteer the right way. This came to me. I've written a blog on this before just because I've done a bit of volunteering in my time. I am lucky enough to be a stay-at-home mom and a stay-at-home working mom now. And that allows me to have some little time buckets during the day where I can fill it with time to volunteer. And I have found out many things about volunteering. One of them is that sometimes you should not volunteer. And that's not a bad thing. Like, volunteering is great. Sharing what you're good at for the benefit of other people is really awesome. But there are some times when you should not volunteer. So let me give you those examples, and maybe you can help me out by telling me these times that you volunteered. So, 1. So go ahead and drop a 1 in the comments if this is you. You volunteer because you feel like you can't say no, because somebody is requiring you to volunteer, like it's expected of you, either because of your family or your children, or maybe even your spouse. Maybe this is something that you feel like you have to do because of their work, or maybe even because of your work. Hey Christina, so talking about volunteering, so if you can please drop a 1 in the comments if you have volunteered in a situation because you felt like you could not say no. Okay, another reason sometimes we volunteer is number 2, we feel like we could do it better than someone else. So I know that sounds bad when you break it down like that, but perhaps, let's say I know a lot of moms, right? So perhaps you have a child who is in a club, and they've been in the club for 2 or 3 years, and you haven't really liked the way it's gone, so you are now going to volunteer because you want it to go your way, the way you want your child to get a little bit more benefit, or the club to get a little bit more benefit than it's received in the past. So that's number 2. Number 3 is feeling like you have to fill your time. You have nothing else to do, so you're just gonna volunteer. I'll just sign up for any old thing. So put a number 3 in the comments if you volunteer just to fill your time. Now, all 3 of these can go really bad real quick. Number 1 especially. So number 1 was, again, drop these in the comment. Number 1 was you volunteered because you felt like you had no other choice, that you had to, because your friend was making you, or you thought your spouse would expect it of you, or your kids were sort of like giving you the strong arm. Number 2, you volunteer because you felt like you could provide a little bit more than what was given in the past to an organization or for your child or for someone else. So maybe a little bit of a competition factor, but maybe also just something you can provide. And number 3 was that you volunteer because you just needed to fill your time. Okay, so I want to talk about each of those because I've actually been in all of those situations. There was one year when we were living in Germany that I volunteered to help this great big fantastic fundraiser. And when I signed up for it, I really was just filling my time. We had just gotten there. I really didn't have a whole bunch of friends. My kids were off at school all day. I had an online job, but I could not log into it until 5 o'clock at night our time because they were all on the US West Coast. And so I just needed to fill my time, right? So that's why I signed up. Now, during the course of helping out with this event, which for us, that was the big bazaar. So a bazaar at a overseas base is a fundraiser where they sign up a lot of vendors from other countries and locally to come in and sell their wares, and we work with the base, and we work with the agreements between the two countries, and they can usually sell without tax, and then the proceeds go back to our military community. So awesome event. So I was helping with this. So at first I volunteered because I wanted to fill my time. Second, I had been doing it for a while, and I saw that there was a need for a position that needed to be filled to run it the next year. And I stepped in as a second because I sort of felt like I had to, or nobody else was going to. And as you usually see, things get filled when they need to get filled. You never have to volunteer, right? And as I was spending time on this, I really struggled because the cause was so great and my heart wasn't into it. And I remember telling the woman I was working with at the time, shout out Megan Dumas, woohoo, that I knew it was a great big cause, but I wasn't feeling it. And I felt like I was doing a disservice for the volunteering project because I wasn't feeling it. The good news is that after a couple of months, I did become very passionate about it, and I did do a good job. But it makes me think about volunteering, and it makes me think about when you volunteer, you, one, need to make sure that it's something you personally have time for. If someone asks you, then you totally should say, I need to check my calendar and availability first for the duration of the project to make sure that I can give to you the time you need. And if that time is not there on your calendar, hey, and Shirley, if that time is not there on your calendar for you, it is completely okay to come back to that person and say, thank you for thinking of me for this position, but I cannot give you the time I need. Also, you want to make sure that you are very passionate about what you're volunteering for, that you have some sort of, that is connected to your heart in some way, that you have, I know some people say skin in the game, right? That there's a reason for you being there. An example of this is my daughter has just started marching band, and they need some people to help them with their booster club. And so I have volunteered to help them out. I don't really know what their needs are, but on my first introduction to the now president, she told me she is finishing her 2-year term and they desperately need someone. Now, if I were to go for that position, I would, one, make sure I had time, but two, make sure that I'm really connected to it. I do happen to love band, and I do happen to love music, and I remember how wonderful it was to have a very supportive band booster club when I was in marching band myself, and how that really improved my experience. So I could see being very connected to it and paying it forward for these kids to have a great experience. And there's nothing wrong with that. So you want to make sure you have time, and you want to, so that covers point number 3. So doing it just to fill your time is great if you have time, but you have to be passionate, and your heart has to be connected. Number 2 was, I've already forgotten because I went out of order. So number 1 was signing up because you felt like you had no choice. Here's the deal, you always have a choice. And if you feel like you're being coerced to being a volunteer and you, one, either don't have time, or two, don't either have your heart into it, you're gonna be an awful volunteer. And when I say awful, I don't mean that you don't have the skills for it or you can't do it, but you're doing a disservice to the situation and the club that needs to have the support. If you're bringing in sort of a negative attitude to a volunteer experience, you're going to drive away other people who may have a heart for it, who may be able to help, or you might ruin the connection. So think about that. Like, you really do need to be connected, or else you might create an experience that's bad for everyone all the way around. So it is okay in those situations to say no. I think we feel like people are going to judge us for saying no, and chances are they're just asking you because they have nothing to lose. And if you say no, they're going to move on to someone else. And there is going to be someone who has the time and the passion to do it. Or maybe they end up hiring someone because it's needed. So those are just thoughts I had today about volunteering. So make sure you have the time, make sure you have the passion. Really, when you're a volunteer, you're paying it forward. So make sure you're paying something forward to others when you're serving them. Other than that, you know, if you need help saying no to someone who's making you volunteer for someone, call me. I will tell you stories about volunteering and how it can be a very great thing, but you have to set the circumstances correctly. So I hope you do volunteer. I do hope you find something that you're passionate about and you're surrounded by other people who are paying it forward and have a positive attitude, because that's what volunteering is all about. All right, have a great Monday, and I hope that helps set your mindset.